Here, another version of this same thing, it's debit cards. Okay? Debit cards get people into a lot of trouble. They are awesome. They are awesome things, but they're also weapons if you don't know the game you're playing for the same reason. Okay, so a debit card, normally almost all, I think anymore, can be used either on the credit option or the debit option. What is the difference between these two options? Credit utilizes the symbol that the card has, such as Visa, MasterCard, etc. And it gets run by the people accepting it on a credit mode. Now, all of the money, it doesn't matter which way you pick on that path when they say, do you want credit or debit? It doesn't matter which of these two options you pick. The money comes off your account to debt. So a credit option does not mean like a credit card. We're lending you the money until the end of the month and then you pay it off. That's not what it means on a debit card. Okay? What is the, on a credit option, you never ever have to pick your PIN. So they just swipe it and you select credit and that's it. On the debit option, you always need to input the PIN. Now, you, in my opinion, I'm very opinionated in case you haven't noticed, and it only gets worse. In my opinion, there is no reason you should ever use a PIN unless you're taking money from your bank's ATM. Why? Two important reasons. One, many banks will charge you a fee the minute that you put your PIN. So you might buy a soda for $1.25. They might charge you 50 cents for that. And maybe those 50 cents come at the end of the month. So next thing you know, you've spent $2–3 that you weren't planning on it, you didn't know. You just thought, oh, I'm paying with my debit card, put the PIN. But even the most important reason in my mind is because when you're using the PIN, you give up the protection of the Visa, MasterCard, credit logo, which is a lot, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You give up that protection, you still have a very nice level of protection, but you have the possibility of hassle, because in the banking world we've learned that a huge amount of the fraud that happens is little cameras being installed on those little machines. So when you're entering your PIN at a 7-Eleven, there could be cards that are actually filming you typing the PIN. So now they have your card number and they have your PIN, and it's very dangerous. So there's no reason to really pick that. Yes.
What about at the gas station? Like, I know if I choose the credit option, it takes like 2 or 3 days just to clear up, and I don't like that. Like, so I go ahead and I type in my debit. I use debit because for gas, since for some reason it like waits or it take out $1.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about that so you can plan.
Gas stations are notorious for that.
Gas stations are notorious for identity theft. 7-Elevens, every time you guys see this, what I call brand X ATMs, that you go into some kind of a little convenience store or whatever, and you see these little brand X that maybe they charge you only $1, $1.50. You're playing with fire because those are prime fraud targets. And the folks that are working at this convenience store, it's not their fault. I mean, they're doing what they're doing, and all you need is a couple of thieves blocking the way, installing these tiny little cameras, and then every customer that comes in, they're being stolen. So these are decisions you have to weigh out. as an alternative, this is what I taught my kids, because my kids would say, you know, what if there are no branches of my bank nearby, because you do not want to go to some other bank and pay $3-4 to get a 20. I mean, that's insanity as far as I'm concerned. All you do is you go to a large store such as Giant, CVS, Safeway, Rite Aid, and the list goes on and on and on, and you buy a 20-cent candy and get cash back. It costs you zero fees.
You advise doing that?
Yeah,
Okay.
zero fees, and you got your cash.
It doesn't matter which bank, it's always zero fees. I always thought
Zero
like they,
fee.
oh.
So, you know, you're just getting cash back. You go to pay for a candy or a soda or whatever, and you tell the cashier, I'm gonna need $20 cash
There's
back.
usually
You can-
limits though, right? You can't get a lot of money.
No, you can't
Yeah.
get a ton of money, but you know, if you need for gas or whatever, the bottom line is you can get at least generally $20 to $40 cash back. That will get you what you need
And
until you can get to your bank.
you can use the credit option on your card in order to do that, or is that just the debit?
You can
option?
use the credit option too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you cash back?
yeah.
Really? Because that
Really?
option never comes up.
Sometimes you need to, let me explain this to you, it's very important, and it'll help you understand what happens. When you do these options, depending on what you pick, the banks make more money or less money. So the default thing that the machines want you to pick is debit. That's the default. And depending on what store you're at and how the whole thing is set up, some of them you need to do cancel. And after you do cancel, like you know, you swipe the card and it says enter your PIN. That's the first thing that you say, and you're like, I want to use it as credit. But I only have this choice. You do cancel. The next thing you're gonna see is gonna say you want debit or credit, and that's what you're gonna pick credit. And then
And then they'll have the 20, 40, 60 usually.
sometimes they have,
I've
yes,
seen that. Okay.
yeah. So you want to cancel out. If you don't get that option, you say to the cashier, I want to use it as credit and I want 20 back or whatever. And yes, you will get it. But always be aware of that, because the default, not by mistakes, they want you to use debit, because every time you select debit, the financial institution is making more money from that transaction. It's not costing you, well, it may cost you, your particular bank charges you 50 cents transaction, but even if it doesn't, we're getting more money if you go this way. So we want to push this, but you really want to go this way most of the time, okay? Now, going back to your question about the gas situation, just like we talked about the available balance situation, some of those rules are the same with debit cards, meaning that the cutoff time for a debit card depends on the people you're buying the goods from. A gas station we call it settling in the banking world, meaning all of the credit card transactions or debit card transactions that happen, let's say, on gas station A, that happen until noon, are going to settle at 1 o'clock. What does that mean? It means that's the point in the day when gas station A says, wrap up all of the sum of all of these transactions, close them, send them to the bank to get the money put into my account. That's what's really happening there, right? But gas station B, their settlement time may be midnight, or it may be 11. Or they may actually have two settlements a day, one at 11 a.m. and one at 11 p.m., for example. Why does this matter to you to understand this? Because the minute you went to put gas, you swiped the thing, right? When you're being charged $1, that process is happening only for the sake of verifying that your debit card and your checking account is good. Because they don't want to give you the gas on your card and then have it be bad. So what's actually happening at that point is connecting to the bank, is connecting to your account and saying, it's good. They are pre-authorizing an average expense for gas, which could be anywhere between 20 and 80 bucks or so, right? They're making sure that the bank police isn't screaming and going, no, no, this person is trouble, right? So if you pass that preliminary pre-authorization of the $1 thing, then the system's gonna let you put gas, because at that point it doesn't know how much gas you're gonna put, right? So it lets you fill up your tank, and then it knows, okay, you spent $32.95 on gas, but that money may come out of your account. It may come out on gas station B at 11 o'clock at night, or on gas station A at noon of the following day, right? So there could be a whole variety of time zones which you're never going to know. You don't know if this giant settles at noon and the gas station at 11. You don't know what's happening with this thing, right? So why am I telling you the importance of this? Because you need to train your mind to really know that when you know your available balance is 150 bucks and you just put 36 bucks in gas right now, even though if you went to your bank in 1 hour, it's still gonna say you've got 150, but you just spent 36 bucks. You better, at least mentally, know you really have 36 bucks less. And just because you look at 11 o'clock and you're like, oh, I have 150 bucks. Well, no, because the reason you can't see the 36 bucks is because this isn't going to settle until 11. So it's going to show in your account tomorrow. So you need to know, have a sense of what's going on. Because again, if you say you put the gas, you spend 36 bucks, but oh well, it's tomorrow morning, I have 150 bucks, cool, I can go holiday shopping, you know, I'm gonna spend the 143, and then that settlement hits. Now you're in big trouble. Now this whole, you just threw a gas tank away in fees. You just gave yourself a ticker on the banking world, and now you're saying, now I'm stuck with this whole hassle, right? You need to know what's going on. You need to be realistic and keep, at least on a daily basis, track of what's happening. If you're going to, and just like I said earlier on, you have to be real. If you're going out partying with the girls, and you know that it's easy for you to get carried away spending, okay, if you know you're that person, you have to make certain steps in advance. One is, you're going to go to your bank and you're going to say, what's my available balance? What do I really have to spend, right? After you see this, you need to say, between this figure and this minute, have I spent any other money that's not reflected in this figure, the gas or the whatever. And after you really kind of know what you have, before you go partying with the girls, you're gonna say to yourself, okay, do I need to go to the bank and get $20, $30 to go partying and leave my debit card at home? Or do I take it? Don't set yourself up.
That's hard. That's hard.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
What about
7
emergency?
years.
You know?
7 years.
What about emergencies? Like, Like you saying, leave the debit
Late
card
night
at
movies.
home.
What emergency?
Coffee.
You know, it's
What emergency?
the
Metro
flax or
card.
something.
What do you need? You call girlfriend, you call
AAA.
boyfriend.
Call AAA.
I left my card at home. Can you
Stuck
go
in the
get my
middle of
card for me,
nowhere.
AAA?
No
You
card.
have a
She's a
cell
flat tire.
phone, you call somebody.
Your
I
cell
mean,
phone's
died.
dead. I mean, that's the story of my life.
This is the thing, this is the
Charger
thing.
right there.
I mean, this is the thing, guys. You need to be real. Be real. Don't convince me of the excuses why it's okay for you to get in trouble.
No, actually that's true. Like I've done that. Like when I went to
We all
Raleigh-
have.
Yeah.
I've made excuses. I've made plenty of them. We all do.
Yeah. No, I meant like the idea of leaving your debit card at home but taking cash out. Like
Yeah.
I would just take like $60 and then go out with my friends, but I would only spend like 40 to 50 and then I'll just save like 20 because I'm like, well, I need to have cash, so I'll save
Yeah.
20, and then in the long run it would help me out.
It's
But
hard
it's a
to
scary
do.
thing though.
It's
to
hard
leave.
to do. It's hard to do. What I need you to understand, this is how the decisions you're making today, such as this one, make a difference. The same car, this exact same car, if you have bad credit, let's pretend a car, I'm going to pick figures, let's pretend a car that's $18,000. If you have really bad credit, that car payment could be close to $400. If you have really good credit for that same car, it may be $260, to illustrate the difference of what we're saying here. For the same car, for the same item. Right? Then you go to rent an apartment and your credit is horrible. We're not going to rent it to you. We don't want to deal with your excuses and your things. No, it's not going to happen. Then you want a loan. We're also not going to give it to you. And if we do give it to you, we are going to rob you blind for the, I'm actually being badly sarcastic because it isn't really robbing you blind, is charging you a very painful fee for us taking the risk of giving money to somebody who has proven time and again they can't deal with money. So if I'm going to give it to you, I'm going to charge you out the wazoo, because if you do me wrong and the odds go up like this, that you might, I'm going to recover up front some of the danger zone that I was willing to put myself through. So again, 7 years, I will say it until you guys want to throw tomatoes at me, because 7 years is a very long time, and at your age range, it's your buying time. Within the next 7 years is when you need to make some pivotal decisions. You want to be a med student, that's going to be a hectic career. The banks better like you, the lenders better like you, because they need to decide what the risk of picking up the tab for 100 to 200 grand is. So, you want to leave that debit card home? How badly do you want to be a doctor?
Real bad.
Okay, that debit card needs to stay, I think. Yes.
It seems like there's a disconnect there in the philosophy, though, about, as far as lending people money. So say a person has bad credit, and they seek out a loan or whatever, so then you're going to charge them more, on a regular basis to make their payment. If they demonstrated they couldn't make a payment before, why does it make sense to charge them more?
For the risk.
Well, I understand the risk, but, it seems to be that there's an incentive for banks to loan out to people who can't necessarily pay it back, as we saw the past couple of years with some of the
That's
scandals,
exactly
the
what
predatory
happened.
lending.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so is there too much of an incentive, though, for banks or other lenders to loan out money for the fees that they stand to make by increasing the, payments and whatever else?
Well, Yes and no. If you look at what's happened in the economy and so forth because of the bad mortgage loans, that's exactly what happened. It was a very bad thing. Um, at the end of the day, the fact, this is Maria speaking, opinionated Maria. At the end of the day, you made the decisions and there are no excuses for making bad decisions. There's no excuse to go to buy a house you can't afford. Just because somebody told you, you can afford it, go get it. That's Maria's opinion. But anyways, putting Maria's opinions to the
I
side,
agree with that.
putting Maria's opinions to the side, the banks did not use correct judgment. And when I mean the banks, I'm not talking about the banks because there were hundreds of thousands of mortgage lenders that were not
Right,
banks
right.
out there, right? So mortgage lenders did not use sound lending practices by which they would have disqualified all these people that got houses they shouldn't have bought, right? But under normal circumstances, when it comes to, and believe me, go try to get a loan now, it's a very different picture. Very different picture. Maybe for every 10 people that apply for a loan, 2 get it when it comes to a mortgage. And you better prove your credit score better be decent, because no longer will you get that loan if your credit's bad. You're not gonna get it. Now, for a car, it's different because a car is a very easy thing to take away from you. So I am gonna take the risk, and I am gonna charge you premium rates, and yes, Maria's opinion is I have the right to charge you more than somebody I can depend on paying every month. And you did this to yourself when Maria told you today what to do. You did take the debit card, you did scratch it out, and now you're telling me I'm gonna pay you 25 days late for that card because I chose to take my debit card out. No, but if you still don't pay me, I'm gonna come with a towing, I'm gonna hook it up.
Well, generally speaking, I agree with you about, at the end of the day, people made their decisions, etc. But as you pointed out at the very beginning of this thing, people are largely uneducated about this stuff. So how can these institutions that, propose to loan this money out to people say that, well, you made your decision, at the same time not provide them with any kind of resources about, how to educate themselves with regard to how the systems even work in the first place?
Well, the law, again, we go back, I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody, this is Maria's opinion. When you become an adult, which means 18 years or older, every decision in your life that has a legal consequence, it's on you.
Oh, yeah, I agree
But
with you.
they
I'm just
also,
saying.
they do tell you, because they have a lot of that fine print that
It
you
is.
have to
They
go
do
through that
tell
people
it to you.
don't
They
go
don't.
through. Yeah, people don't go through, so when you go and you sign that
Exactly,
piece
but how
of
much of it
paper.
is legalese though? I mean, do you expect a layperson to be able to read through these
No,
fine
you
print?
don't,
I guess
I mean
understand everything.
philosophically you don't, but
Yeah.
they do, they have to have it there, and that's how they're
because
covered.
it's a legal obligation, I
And
No,
understand.
you
I
sign
mean,
that.
that's why I do what I do. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
I can appreciate
because
that,
I'm
yeah.
telling you what, even though everything I'm telling you is somewhere in those 300 pages of stuff you're never gonna read, from a legal standpoint.
Like a license agreement.
But I'll tell you what, when I was 19 years old,
Except in Catholic.
I bought my first property. I was 19 years old. I came to this country when I was 15. So English was only a few years old for me as a person. And I don't think, in spite of me saying Maria's the queen in a funny way, I don't think I'm like a genius. When I bought that apartment at 19 years old, my settlement took about 7 hours because I wasn't going to sign a thing unless I knew what was going on. Yeah, they wanted to kick me, get rid of this crazy woman. But I was 19 years old, trying to juggle materials in a language that was pretty new for me. And you better believe, and if there were things that were important to me, such as I was so young, my dad had to co-sign for this place. I didn't really know what that meant I was sitting there explain to me what this means. And what happens if I don't pay? And who is the owner of this thing? Because my dad's co-signing for this, but I'm owning it. I don't want my dad to decide he's the owner, right? So, bottom line, with the advent of the internet, you can find anything out. Anything out. There's no excuses. Now you can choose to say, what about this, what about that, what about that. I'm here to tell you what it is. Reality.
Sure. I would make the argument though that it's not entirely the fault of any one party involved in this process because, if these lending institutions and other things, the other institutions that were responsible for a lot of the mess that occurred over the past couple of years were to take a, larger role in educating individuals, proactively instead of expecting them to just, ask all of the questions, then I think that they wouldn't be in the situation in the first place. And since they're in such a position to affect the economy at large, I think they should have greater care, or take greater care in educating people so that these messes don't happen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree to the extent that that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Because I feel very passionate, because I do feel that most folks are at a disadvantage because it's what I said at square one. You're playing a game and you don't know what the rules of the game are. And you need to know those rules.
I agree with you, Matt, but I see it two-sided.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, it's not black and white.
Because I don't understand the legalese, but if you're buying a property, you should be able to do 5th or 6th grade math. I mean, you're old enough to do that, and you know what your payment is, what you can do percentages, and so there's a piece of me that says, I think it was greed on everybody's part.
And I'll just share as a side note, I had a real estate license at the point where everything was going crazy, and I wasn't even a banker at that point. So I had no idea about banking and everything I'm telling you today. I had 2 customers. I sold a lot of houses in 2 years, a ton of them. I had 2 customers that I refused to sell houses to. Okay, I refused. And they're like, because I sat there and I did the math, I said, you can't buy these houses. Both sets, both families had 2 kids apiece. I said, you can't live. You can't buy food. You can't do this. And they looked at me and they said, if you won't help me buy it, I'll find somebody that will. And I said, find somebody that will. Because I'm not going to look at your kids in the street. Find somebody.
Right.
And they did. And they bought the places. And about a year and a half later, I saw the sign on the house that they wanted to buy that I didn't sell them on bankruptcy. The news was doing one of those things when all the bankruptcy started exploding. And I was like, thank God I don't have to look at that knowing I did it. But what I'm saying to you is I sat there with calculator and I said, you can't buy this. You can't afford it. There's not enough money left for you to pay electricity. No, I can afford it. These guys told me that I'm pre-approved up to $900,000. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
a person earning $40,000 with 2 kids wanting to buy an $800,000 house.
Wow, my gosh.
So what I'm saying to you is there were people, and I experienced it as a realtor.
And in the end, you still don't get the house.
At the time, that were so enamored with getting these things that it didn't matter what you said. Now, I'm not talking about everyone being that, but there were certainly some of those. And you and I, all of us around this table, are today picking up the tab for them, by the way. Because if you don't think we are, that's fooling ourselves. We are all paying for that mortgage that somebody ate up. So, anyways.
Maria, why don't we just take a
Yes,
5-minute
let's take a break.